Thanks for listening. This podcast is a ministry of Mariners Church, and everything we do to serve you, our communities, and our global family happens because of your generosity. Your financial support in the month of June is vital as we close out the final weeks of our ministry year. Everything you give equips us to reach our world with the hope of Jesus and serve those around us in His name. To give now and partner with us, visit marinerschurch.org/give or click the link in the show notes. Thank you for your generosity, and God bless you.
Welcome to the If I Had More Time podcast hosted by Mariners Church. This series invites you into a casual conversation with our senior pastor, Eric Geiger, and our teaching team to hear a few insights and truths they wish they had time to include in the weekend message. We hope you enjoy it. Thanks so much, guys, for joining us for the If I Had More Time podcast this week. We are in week 7 of our series going through the book of Genesis. I'm here with our senior pastor, Eric Geiger.
So glad to be back. I am so thankful for our church's hunger for the book of Genesis. Week 7.
Come on.
We're speeding through, and then next week, week 8, there's still a lot of chapters to cover, but really like a fourth of the book is the story of Joseph, which is where we'll be next week.
Oh my goodness. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I've been so immersed in this week, I kind of forgot for a second that next week is Joseph.
It's Joseph.
I'm stoked.
Who's one of Jacob's sons, and just like Jacob's parents had favorites, Jacob has favorites. And I mean, you would think this just shows how messed up we are, and also how sins kind of repeat themselves in our lives. If there's anyone who you think would be like, I am going to be sure there's no favoritism in my family, you think it would be Jacob, because he saw how his mom favorited him, how his dad favorited Esau, and how that created tension in the family. Yet here we are, this will be next week, all these weeks later, you'll see that Jacob gives a coat to the cute little son Joseph, and then Joseph feels enabled to tell the other brothers, guys, I had a dream.
Yeah.
Isn't it weird? You guys bowed down and worshiped me.
Not very tactful.
Yeah, not very tactful. Even though the dream was from God, if you have a dream like that, don't share it. But that's next week. But it is just so fascinating for me when we're tracking this family that we are seeing some of the relational tension that happened with Jacob when he's a son. It also happens when he's a father. That the sibling rivalry that happened between Jacob and Esau happens between Rachel and Leah. That this family we come from is definitely not a perfect family at all, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, when you made that comparison to some of those current drama television shows today, it hits home for me. I just recently finished Yellowstone. I don't personally endorse for anybody to watch. But
Don't you do like puzzles or something while you watch it? What is it that you do?
Yes. I cannot handle how extreme the violence is. So I have to do something to keep me like half distracted.
So what is it that you do?
So I do puzzles.
Yeah. So, all right. But like how many pieces in the puzzle?
I'm a 500-piece puzzle kind of girl.
All right, so if you're working on a puzzle, that means you're not like laying on the couch or sitting in a recliner. You're like at a table?
No, yes, or my friend did recently let me borrow her puzzle board, which is adjustable.
So you have a puzzle board. This is so good. So you like the puzzle board like sits on your lap? And then you're able to work on a puzzle while you watch Yellowstone?
I did not expect this. I feel totally flamed right now. I can be in multiple places, and that's the beauty of a puzzle board, you see, because you can move your puzzle around, whereas
it doesn't fall. The puzzle board holds the puzzle.
It's made out of this like felt material, so it can also go up, like it can tilt towards you.
Wow.
I guarantee you there's some fans listening right now of the puzzle board, and they probably have it too.
So you kind of like 25% engaged in Yellowstone, 75% the puzzle, or the other way around?
Roddy would say 25% because of how many questions I still have to ask.
So you were more on the. So when it gets really tense in the scene, you're like really devoted to the puzzle.
Absolutely. You wouldn't believe how serious I get.
So the point of this being, this family that we're studying in Genesis is just like Yellowstone, except it's real.
Yes. Which I don't know. I mean,
not just
it's
like
just
Yellowstone.
not as visual for me, I guess.
Right.
So I can handle this one a little bit more.
Totally.
But it does have some pretty spicy drama.
Oh, gosh,
this
totally.
is there's some serious drama happening in this family.
We have, and I think I forgot to say it in one message. Hopefully, I'll remember to import it into the message, other messages I do. That Leah and Rachel, people sometimes wrestle like, there's polygamy in the Bible. Is God okay with that? And you always have to, when you study a passage like this, look at the difference between description and prescription.
Yeah.
So we're looking at it at just a raw, honest story of what happened, the account of what happened. And God is definitely not commanding polygamy. It was very common in that cultural context, and the scripture's just raw and honest about what happened, and so that there was polygamy there, but he's not commanding polygamy. So that passage is not a passage that you should struggle with. We'll hit on the table in early 2026 some of the difficult passages in the Old Testament where the conquest, for example, go into the land and destroy a people. I mean, that is God commanding. This one, you should have no wrestle. God is not commanding polygamy to happen. It was just a cultural reality of that time.
Right.
And yet God worked through the mess of it all and even brought the 12 tribes of Israel through it.
Yeah, yeah. Would you say it's same? I mean, when I hear this story, the dishonesty of stealing the blessing, I mean, is it similar to that as well? That it's God's just making something good out of the fallenness of a man or men.
Yeah, God is able to use the sinful choices of people to still accomplish His great purpose.
Yeah,
I didn't have time, which is why I'm glad we have a podcast to unpack this. But God, even when the birth happened, announced it. The younger will serve. The older will serve the younger. So basically, even at the birth, God was saying Esau is going to serve Jacob, that the blessing is going to be given to Jacob. But it didn't happen until Esau sold his blessing. So really, everybody was at fault, right? Yeah. Esau was impetuous, not valuing the inheritance he had, not valuing the blessing, sells his blessing for stew.
Yeah.
And then Rebecca, she's showing favoritism towards Jacob. Jacob clearly is being deceptive. Isaac, there's no one fully innocent here. Isaac is showing favoritism towards Esau. So the account of the family, if you read it over and over again through each lens of each person, you really do get to the conclusion that there's no one innocent here.
Right. And
yet God is choosing to bless this family, and from this family is going to be the one who blesses people from every tribe, tongue, and nation.
And us.
Exactly. And we get pulled into it,
Yeah. I wanted to say this at the very beginning too. I really appreciate how much you lean on the visuals whenever we're talking through these complex family trees.
There's a lot of people.
So many people. So for I would just say for me personally, I mean, I get to read the message. I get to sit and listen to the message when we record it for online. But when I can sit down and I get to watch you use the visuals of this family tree, everything really does click together so much more. It's really, really helpful.
Yeah, and our team works really hard. I mean, you're in those meetings. It's not just drawing up stick figures. I mean, we're working on timing and doing all we can to make it super clear for the people.
Yeah. Totally worth it. So helpful. So you shared, as we kind of followed this story with Jacob this week, you shared how we all wrestle with God, like Jacob. I mean, how amazing is that scene too that you described, just with one touch, that he would be so greatly injured by
right.
It had to
just touch the hip and it's dislocated. So clearly this is not just a man.
Yeah, right. But it was a man as well, right? Like it had to be,
there had to be a physical body to wrestle.
Yeah. So would you share, I mean, because in the message you talked about how we all wrestle. This is something that we all do. And at some point we will bow one way or another to that, to the God that we do wrestle. What's your own story with this? How have you wrestled with God, and then how has that changed you?
Yeah, there's definitely a wrestling that happens before you meet Christ, and then I think there's wrestling that happens throughout your journey after becoming a Christian. So Jacob's name is a double meaning, striver and deceiver, and all of us before we meet Christ are strivers. So we're either striving to earn our approval before God, even if we're good people. We're trying to earn our standing before him with our morality. Some of us, that's not what we're striving for. We're striving for pleasure in this world, or we're striving to be accepted by people by accomplishing a lot of things, or we're striving to have this sense of self-fulfillment because we've accomplished something that we're proud of. But the thread with humanity is striving. And even really in the book of Genesis, I mean, there's the striving to build the Tower of Babel.
Yeah.
There's the striving to eat from the fruit in the garden so I could be the one in charge of my life. Striving is this default of the heart. Martin Luther, the great reformer, said that religion is the great default of the human heart. And religion is a sense of striving. It's man's attempt to make himself or herself right with God. So everyone's striving looks different, but yet there is the striving. For me, before I met Christ, I was striving for approval, striving for fulfillment internally and in the world, or in things that the world would offer. And those were never sufficient. And the longer we live, if you're honest, you would say the things you strive for are not sufficient either. And then the invitation from Christ is just lose to me, surrender to me, let me dislocate your hip, and give you a new name. Let me give you a new identity. And so when I became a Christian, that was for sure me losing at running my own life, striving for my own peace, and just losing to him.
Yeah, a surrender.
Surrender, totally. Yeah, lose is to surrender, to tap out, to give up. And then practically after becoming a Christian, I think a lot of times my spiritual growth has come at moments of losing again. Intellectually, there's been times I've wrestled with things in the Christian faith, like I know I'm not alone in this one. I mean, I think this is probably the most common intellectual wrestle, but suffering. I remember when the tsunami hit Indonesia in early 2000s. I think I was early in Miami at the time. I moved to Miami in 2003, so had to be right around that time. And I just really wrestled with God. Like, I teach that you are, I was already a pastor. I teach that you are loving and you're powerful. I don't know how is it that you love these people and you had the power to stop this and you didn't stop this. I mean, I really wrestled for months, and I finally just gave up. And what I mean when I gave up is I'm not going to be able to have a clean cliche answer. And yet I'm trusting that you are both good and powerful at the same time. And your ways are higher than my ways. I can't explain everything, but I give up trying to figure it all out. And yet I'm still holding on to you. And then it wasn't until I moved here in 2018. I've only been here a couple months when I had this conversation with Pastor Adrian, who's one of our global family members in Sri Lanka. And
who have experienced extreme devastation.
He lived through the tsunami.
Wow.
And I said, man, honestly, the tsunami, that was one of my biggest intellectual struggles. And he tells me, he says, man, God used that in such beautiful ways in our country. The number of people who came to faith through that, the number of opportunities. In my whole lifetime, we never had the opportunities that we had to share the grace of Jesus as we did coming out of the tsunami. And I said, come on, man. I am so thankful to hear this right now.
Wow.
Because I wrestled with this, 15 years ago.
Wow.
So it took 15 years for me to have someone tell me like a really who not someone who's giving me a cute answer, someone who lived it, who was there.
Yeah.
Not
Right.
not like a theologian saying, God works all things for good, which I know he does, but someone who was there
Wow.
saying, Eric, I'm telling you, this was a beautiful season for the grace of Jesus and the gospel going forth. So it took 15 years for me to hear that, and I'm so thankful that I held on in the wrestling to Jesus and yet also surrendered, not needing to know everything. But I do know there are some things that I won't know this side of heaven.
Right.
Right?
Right. Like
that,
we don't
that was
always
15
get
years.
the
Yeah, we don't
Adrian
always
moment,
get that. We don't always get the Adrian moment.
which is tough.
Yep. But I think the wrestling in that moment intellectually was probably a growth spurt in my life. It was a growth spurt in my life. Just time praying with him, wrestling with him, time reading the scripture. Definitely learning from him that he's not offended by my questions or my doubts. And he loved that I went to him with them. And at the same time, I'm super grateful because he knew that 15 years later, I'd have that conversation with Adrienne. He knew that.
Yep.
I didn't know that, but he knew that. He knew that was going to happen.
Wow.
Isn't that cool? He knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he was growing your intimacy with him in the
Exactly.
meantime,
Exactly.
Like just drawing you closer to himself. That's
Yep.
so beautiful. What a great story.
So keep holding on and also keep losing. Keep letting him touch your hip and lose to him.
Yeah. And you said that if you lose to God,
You win.
You win. So I love the way you said that.
Yeah, the
so
way to win
succinctly.
is to lose to him.
So Jacob becomes Israel only after the wrestle and the limping. Why does that deep transformation oftentimes come with the wrestle or the limping, you could say the suffering?
Yeah. I mean, this is not a passage explicitly about suffering, but clearly if you get a dislocated hip, there's some suffering involved.
Ouch.
And then you go to the New Testament and you definitely see multiple passages teaching that through the trial, James 1, 1 Peter 1, that consider it joy when you face trials of various kinds because the testing of your faith leads to perseverance. James is not being trite either and saying feel joyful. He's saying consider it. So it's like a mouth calculation. Hey, calculate that this is good for you. Calculate that something good's going to come from this. That from the trial will come some joy on the other side of it.
What about the significance of that incredible vision of God ascending and descending to Jacob? I mean,
and that's earlier before the wrestling, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now backtrack to the earlier part.
Yeah.
What's the significance there?
Yeah, it's a huge one, and this is one of the reasons I'm really wanted our church to study Genesis because I'm glad we have more time to hit it because I didn't have time in the sermon. All right, let's just be sure we're tracking on the timeline. So right after, so the wrestling happens right before he goes back and sees Esau, and that's when his name is changed. Now, like you said, let's go backwards a little bit. So right after he left, when Esau wants to kill him because he stole the blessing, and he's going to go to Haran where his uncle Laban lives, and that's where he's going to marry Rachel and Leah. Right after he stole the blessing is when he has this dream. We often call it Jacob's ladder, where there's these angels and they're ascending and descending up on the ladder. And then the Lord stands at the bottom of the ladder, or a staircase, it's probably a staircase really in the vision, and restates the promise to Jacob that had been stated to Abraham and Isaac, to his dad and to his grandfather. And the reason, we know what's significant about it because Jesus actually references it in John chapter 1. So John chapter 1, verse 50, he's calling his early disciples, and he has this conversation with Nathanael. And so Jesus responded to Nathanael, "Do you believe because I told you I saw you under the fig tree? You will see greater things than this. Truly I tell you, you will see heaven opened and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man." All right, so Jesus arrives from the tribe of Judah, the promised one of this family, and says, hey, you saw angels ascending and descending on a staircase. I am the staircase. I am the way that people have everlasting life. So not only am I the one who stood at the bottom of the staircase and told Jacob, I'm with you wherever you go, I am the staircase itself.
I'm going to start crying.
Isn't it just really cool?
Oh,
This is beautiful.
that is stunning.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So you when you read the Gospel of John now, because you studied Genesis, you'll read that and you'll be like, oh, well, where did I see that? Where did I see that? That sounds familiar. Angels ascending and descending on the Son of Man. What is he talking about? Oh my goodness, he's talking about when he went after Jacob, who had deceived his brother, who had cheated his brother. He's going. Jesus is saying, I was there. I'm the way that you get to the Father. I'm the one who blesses you.
Oh my goodness. I feel like I need a moment.
Yeah.
I love studying the book of Genesis for so many reasons. And this kind of thing is, I think, why it's been such a worshipful season for our church. We see so much of who Jesus is.
There's so much richness in the book of Genesis for sure.
It really is. It really is.
Yeah.
And I'd love for you to get to go ahead and give a sneak peek to everybody for what's coming after Genesis for this very same reason with the book we'll be studying next.
I mean, what season of Yellowstone are you in? Which we're not endorsing, by the way, and you're watching half of it.
Yeah.
You're halfway involved because you're puzzle making.
Let it be known.
Are you making a
I'm
puzzle of a
puzzling.
cat? Like what are you puzzling right now?
Right now, it's different scenes of like the East Coast. Like it's giving Nantucket. I don't really know.
I like the East Coast, but you live in.
I'm gonna be honest. It's what's on sale at Target.
Okay.
It was a pack of 4 and for $7.
All right, because I'm thinking like
yeah. No, I'm with you.
Do the 17-mile Pebble Beach. Do like
Listen,
this, like the Lone Cypress.
When we were in Santa Barbara, I wanted a Santa Barbara puzzle, but it was a $50 puzzle, and I said no, thank you.
Well,
So,
I'm proud of your stewardship.
thank you so much. This isn't about that.
So even what season are you on right now?
We're done.
Okay,
it's
so
over.
you after season 1, you would not have stopped. You wanted to see season 2.
Yeah.
So we're going to get to the end of Genesis next week. It's a cliffhanger because what you're going to see is this family's in Egypt. This family's in Egypt? No. Why are they in Egypt? God promised them to be this. God gave them this land. God said, I will be with you. I have a land for you. I'm going to build a great nation out of you. What are they doing in Egypt? They can't. Why are they in Egypt? What's going to happen? How are they going to get out of Egypt? Well, you can't just stop with Genesis. You have to go to the book of Exodus. So it's the second book in the Bible, and we start studying it right after we finish the book of Genesis, and we're going to see what happens to this family. It starts as a family, and then boom, you turn the page in the book of Exodus, and they're now a nation. So the family becomes a nation, but the nation is in Egyptian slavery. There's the story of their rescue, and their story of rescue is your story of rescue because you've been rescued too. And just as there are all of these glimmers of pointing to Jesus in the book of Genesis, the same is true in the book of Exodus. We took communion this weekend. We take communion because of what happened in the book of Exodus.
So awesome.
Blood of lambs on doorpost. We believe as Christians that we have the Spirit of God living within us, that we're the temple. Well, the first tabernacle happens in the book of Exodus.
Yeah.
We live new lives. We obey commands not to earn his approval, but because we've already received his approval. Well, the first commands, Exodus chapter 20, known as the 10 Commandments, they're not given to people until after they're rescued. They're rescued from Egyptian slavery, and then there's the commandments. Well, we were rescued by grace, and then now we live differently because we've been rescued. So your story is also really connected to the book of Exodus. So don't stop it. You don't want to stop at the end of season 1. You want to go to season 2.
No shot. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. It's going to be another amazing series. And I'm really proud of our church as I've watched us engage with Genesis. I mean, I'm watching people just devour these magazines,
Yes.
and I know the same will be
Speaking
true.
of magazines, did you see, I mean, obviously you saw it, you helped create it. The Exodus magazine that was held
They
up
get
at all
better every
congregations.
time.
They look, You do not want the Genesis magazine without the Exodus magazine.
That would look so silly by itself.
Come on,
it needs
have
the
those
companion
together.
piece.
They need to be friends.
That's right. Oh, well, Eric, thanks for an amazing message. I'm super excited to just hear how God moves in the hearts of so many people, especially with that beautiful declaration that you were speaking over all of us with our new names this weekend that God has given us that are with Christ.
That's right.
So powerful. I'm going to give a shameless plug for it that Eric, I mean, I'd love for you to, if you wanted to share a little bit about how you actually created the list, what led you to that. We created a resource for people that's on our Genesis series page, or it's on the Mariners app if you want, where you guys can actually download each of those new names that God has given us. And it's powerful. It's already my phone background.
Good.
Powerful reminders. But yeah, for you, I mean, just share a little bit as we close of what was on your heart for our church as you created that.
The scripture is loaded with incredible imagery of who you are after you've been rescued. And, I just typed up, some of the most powerful ones to me. Mm-hmm. There's even others, but you are no longer a slave. You're a child. Your old life is buried. You're a new creation. Just reminding people of you, just like Jacob became Israel, you've become a new person too. You're not forsaken. You're not abandoned. You're not condemned. You're accepted. You're approved. You can rest. You don't have to strive. Yeah. Don't be the striver. Rest in who God has already declared you to be.
Amen. So beautiful. Thanks so much for sharing that with our church and speaking it over us.
Yeah.
And thank you guys so much for listening this week. We hope you'll join us next week as we close out the book of Genesis.
Let's finish strong.
Thanks for listening to the If I Had More Time podcast hosted by Mariners Church. We hope to see you next weekend at any of our congregations throughout Southern California or online. To view our locations and service times, be sure to check out our website at marinerschurch.org.